All right, so listening to the defense's closings here, one of the things that they did during this was try to really discredit the prosecution's idea that the motive was for this child support money, this $20,000 that he owed. And I'm curious to see if you think that that really is a strong argument here against the defense. Right now, we have been talking about this, and a lot of people, a lot of guests that we've had do not agree. With us right now, we have Bruce Barket, criminal defense attorney. Bruce, thanks for being here today.
Happy to be with you.
So what do you think of this so far? You know, we have this motive. The prosecution says this is all about this child support money.
I don't like the motive for the prosecutor here. $20,000 is a lot of money, but relatively speaking, it's not that much. And not only was the mother of his child killed, which presumably would end the child support, but 3 small children were brutally murdered, including his own child. That seems excessive, to say the least, for someone who are a motive to murder. Much more likely, if you're competing motives, much more likely that this was a retaliatory drug hit from a cartel, leaving the shovel, and the notes that were sent to the woman ahead of time saying there's going to be 3 more angels in heaven. That sounds like a motive, and this looks like a drug hit.
Right. All right, Bruce, thanks. We're going to move on because we want to play when Segura took the stand during the trial and listen to his testimony, and we'll break that down. All right, so this takes us back to Segura on the stand, denying that he killed Brandy and the children. I'm curious to know what you think about his testimony and if you found him credible during that, Bruce.
That little segment was interesting in that his initial explanation was very credible. He didn't respond nervously. He simply said, no, I assumed that they drowned because they were found in the tub. And she cross-examined him and got him to say, well, it looks a little different. It's such a small point, and it's easily explained. He's saying, no, I didn't know how they drowned. I didn't know how they died for sure, but I assumed. And all he had to do is say that. His lawyers should be able to fill that in. I imagine they did during their summation. That little segment, he looked credible, calm, easy. The tough thing for the defense here, I think, in this trial, is they really put forward a competing narrative. And the jury, whether they're supposed to or not, is going to pick between the two. And you have this outlandish drug hit with somebody who's made up his participation in other murders against, somebody who she knew killed him, which happens all the time.
Right. Interesting. All right, we're going to talk about that in a minute, especially this cartel murder. We want to play one more clip, though, from the defense's closing arguments. This is when they are bringing up and trying to point the finger at all this extra and foreign DNA that was found at the crime scene. Let's listen. All right, so the defense here talking about the external DNA that was in this house. You know, the foreign female DNA under Brandy's fingernails, the foreign male DNA on the shovel. There was also male DNA on a wallet, I believe. And then also when they analyzed these blood droplets, a lot of those, they're saying, suggested that there were multiple attackers involved here. Bruce, what do you think about this DNA and how this is going to play into this? Because the prosecution has put their experts and they said, well, this could be this, it could be that, and the defense did their way. So
the DNA, from what I can gather here, is mostly neutral and maybe favors the defense a little bit. The point the defense attorney just made was a good one. Had that been the defendant's DNA under her fingernails, that would have been a huge point in favor of the prosecution, and he's absolutely right. The prosecutors would have driven that home. The fact that there's somebody else's DNA, there's probably somebody else's DNA under your fingernails under mine right now, because we come into contact with people all the time, and DNA is transferred relatively easily. So I think it's sort of neutral, maybe favors the defense, but that's not the way crimes are solved these days. Juries put a lot of weight to DNA evidence because of crime shows like CSI and so forth. So if they don't have strong DNA evidence, I think it's going to be tough for the prosecution. And
I think the jury will catch on to that point that he said. Well, if it was the defendants, you would be all over that, and it's not. So that's something that they might.
And it really does beg the question why the prosecutors just kind of dismiss it, because that's not only is that a good argument, it's true. Which it has the benefit of being a good argument and being factually correct, and everybody knows it, that if the defendant's DNA was under her fingernails, the prosecutor would be screaming about it. Why aren't they as interested in it because it's somebody else's? It kind of indicates that they have a conclusion and they're trying to fit the evidence into the conclusion rather than letting the evidence build to a conclusion.
All right, Bruce Barket, thank you so much. We're taking a quick break right now on Law and Crime. When we come back, we'll continue to go over more from Henry Segura's trial. Stay with us.